So let's get started on this traveller's notebook that we're going to do. I'm going to make two. The simplest one is this one, which is just using a single sheet of card. This is 49 and Market, and it's really thick, like 300 grams at least GSM weight. And I think we can get away with using that as a cover for this type of journal. I've cut this piece to 9 inches by 8.5, so you need to go and do that. And then we're going to use a thinner scrapbook paper, and we're going to sort of what I call laminate it. We're going to thicken it up so that it's similar to this one. So you will either need one sheet, 9 inches by 8.5 of thick card. Doesn't matter what it is, pattern wise. And then if you're going to do this cover, if you've got thinner paper, it's still reasonably substantial, but thinner, you're going to need two similar pieces, similar weight. One other thing you need to consider when you're folding these papers is the direction of the grain of the paper or card. If you fold with the grain, it folds nicely and shouldn't crack down the spine. So I want this rose to be on this right hand edge, and as it happens, this card, the grain runs this way, so I'm going to be folding it in the right direction. The reason, one of the ways I can tell that that's going in the right side, the way of the grain, is that it bends easily that way. If I try and bend it this way, it's much stiffer. So the grain is running that way. With this paper, I want it this way up, but the grain is running that way. So although because it's thinner, it's easier to fold, I can feel resistance that way and not so much that way. So it really wants to fold that way, but I'm going to force it into this direction. I'm actually going to use this piece with the grain. And these two pieces are going to be glued together. So the other thing I'm going to do is, for me, I'm going to zigzag around the edge of this just because I like the way it looks. So I will do that off camera, and I will just show you how I glue these two pieces together. So remember, this is with the grain, this is against it, but the two should work reasonably well. If this does start to split at some stage, we can cover it up, can do something with it. So I'm using an acetate based glue for this, and I'm going pretty close to the edge initially. And then I'm eyeballing the middle, roughly where I'm going to be folding it. And I'm going to make sure I've got plenty of glue down that bit. Lots and lots of glue. And a fair amount everywhere else as well. We'll just put these two bits together. A bit of wiggle room with this glue, which is nice. Just going to, I don't want, trying to avoid staining my craft mat. I do want to just push this glue to the edges a little bit, and I'm using just a bone folder to spread that out. Some of it might ooze out. It's fine if it does. So that's fixed. This is ready, and I've told you I'm going to stitch around this one. I'm also going to stitch around this one, but the most important thing with this now is to let it dry completely. So I will let this dry completely. It's going to take a few hours. This glue dries much more quickly than white glue, but I'm still going to give it time to flatten out completely. So if you bear with me, I'll be back shortly. So I'm back with both pieces stitched quite straightforwardly. This one is dry. This one does feel a little bit thicker than this one. They should be fine. And now we're going to fold these ready, the pages. So I have got, I think this is the Martha Stewart scoreboard with 1/8 of an inch lines, which is what you will want. So I'm going to score at 4.5. So I'm going to score down the middle. Sometimes with this board it can be a little bit tricky. I'm using, this is a Teflon tool. It's actually for metalwork, and I've used it for years for scoring. And then we're going to go out 3/8, so 1, 2, 3, and score again 3/8 from that first line on that side. I learned this from a tutorial by Yvonne Preston some years ago now, and it just helps give a little bit more space, I guess, in your journal. So that's that one. You won't be able to see those easily, but there's 3 lines, so I'm just going to fold down the central one. And if we've measured correctly, it should be pretty accurate. So that's going to be our actual spine. And then with this one, I just do a little ease, really. When you're scoring and folding, you should always fold on the little mounting bit that way round. It works the other way, it's not a disaster, but that's the good way to do it. So there's our first cover, and because we went with the grain, we've got no cracking at the moment, and it probably won't crack. So let's see if we can do the same with this one. This one might be a bit harder. So find the, we've got 9 inches, so find the 4.5. I'm pressing down quite hard because I want a good line, and then 3/8. If you haven't got a Martha Stewart or a scoreboard with 1/8 of an inch, 1, 2, 3, you would have to put your cover on something softish, like a big book or something like that, and then measure to your 4.5 point top and bottom. Use your ruler and score that way, and then 3/8 out from each side. It's perfectly possible, it's just a little bit more labour intensive. So that's 1, 2, 3. So we've got our 3 score lines. You can see them better here. And I'm just going to fold that centre. Now, because we've glued these together all over and let it dry, it should fold more or less as one piece of card. If you just dot your glue about and didn't stitch, it might slip a little bit and not work so well, but that, as you can see, we've got no bubbles or anything like that. And then I'm just going to ease this one. I'm going to fold it all the way. That's that one and that one. And there's our cover number 2. So there's our 2 covers completed. Quite quite simple. I'm not going to decorate the fronts on these. They're pretty enough for me, for my own purposes. I don't always decorate the fronts of my own journals. Sometimes I do, but not always. And certainly for not this type of thing where we're doing a series of prompts. So what I'm going to do now is go and choose some pages. I'll go through everything pretty much twice, I think. And I'm going to just put 10 pages, so that's 10 sheets of paper folded in each of these books. So I'm going to go away and search for my pages. I will come back then and show you how I deal with them.